Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Jank Tank episode number 53. My name is Timothy Zaccanino. I've got my two pick twos. I guess we're out of the pick two world now, so I have to choose between Christopher Sofsky and Teld. And
which piece of power do you want?
I'll let you know off air who I would take, but I can't say that on air. So, welcome. We're gonna talk some. I wanted to say Peasant Cube. We're not going to talk Peasant Cube, but we are going to talk about things that go in Peasant Cube, as we're going to discuss the qualities of commons and uncommons that are fit for higher power cubes, higher rarity cubes, rather. So not Peasant Cube, not Pauper Cube, nothing like that, but the commons and uncommons are coming out to play today. And Chris, this was an episode that you pitched, so we'll get your insight on some of the high power stuff coming to lower rarity cards, and we'll have a good little episode before we get into Avatar: The Last Airbender spoilers, where I just had the privilege of showing the Cruel Tutor bonus sheet card to Chris, and he said he wants to collect them all at this point. He wants all of them.
Is the internet like alight with criticism for this shit? Is this like,
they're very upset? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Because usually like a bunch of like online crying from the Magic community is like one of the most annoying things that I have no interest in engaging with, but like I hope that they are out in force right now.
I assume there would be a lot of IP slop guzzling.
Slop, yeah, the slop stuff. Yes, people across the board are not happy about this. One of the other ones is funny too, because it's Dockside Extortionist with like equally terrible art from the show, but not to say that the Avatar show has terrible art, but when you transpose it on a Magic card like this, it looks terrible. But the Dockside Extortionist one is really funny because it's like, who was that reprint for? Like,
right?
You got.
I know that this isn't really for the audience that we talk about, because we're a lot of arena Andes, and so we don't spend money on Magic cards, or at least not booster sets. But all of this complaining is, I just feel like it's going to have the inevitable result of being like, well, we just had another record-breaking sale for the Avatar Universes Beyond, so complain all you want, we're going to print more of it.
Well, that's the thing is, and I don't want to derail us before we get started, but the thing is, like, the reason that everything that we consume is getting worse and lower effort is because the entities that are buying up the companies that make the things that we like don't actually give a fuck about the thing. It's just a line on a balance sheet, and we can complain all we want, but as long as we keep buying it, they're going to keep feeding us slop. So there's a cycle going on where, like, we all know enshittification of the things that we love is happening, but we're still buying them, and as long as we're still buying them, they're just going to keep enshittifying them. So it's just,
what do you think that enchantment would cost to cast, Chris?
Enshittify? What color is that? Is that a?
It's definitely a black card,
right? Yeah, I was gonna say that can't be a blue. Enshittify cannot be a blue enchantment. There's no way. Maybe black white. Like, it's a pacifism, but like,
Esper card, something like that.
Black is definitely the color of shitting on things, right?
I was gonna say it's probably white for reasons, but in any case,
okay. we can keep those reasons off the air. Let's go ahead and re-rail back to the main topic here. Sorry, UB discussion. Sorry, I brought it up. I'm sorry to the listener. If you're still here, we'll get back on track. So before we get into our discussion today, I do want to remind everybody that the best way to support Jank Diver Gaming and the Jank Tank podcast is to join the Discord server. Come draft with us. Give us your feedback. It's a great place to hang out with like-minded individuals and talk about Cube, Retail Limited, all things Magic. Hey, there's an explosive vintage cube conversation happening right now, which we were gonna discuss having a sort of bonus episode about that, but I don't know how we're gonna work that in. The person we wanted to bring on for that is unavailable to do it, and Chris and I are not like vintage cube experts, and Teld has zero interest in talking about it, so we might not get to that, but I do think it's something we wanted to address, and maybe we'll work it in.
They I know that like a lot of the cards are not craftable. It's like Phantom or whatever, but I haven't even looked at the list. Is it fully vintage cube? Did they like
it's a lot of it, but apparently we're still missing a lot of very important cards, particularly for mid-range archetypes. A lot of the combo-y, more synergistic fiddly stuff is apparently missing. So if you've looked at the data, it's just basically Boros as far as the eyes can see.
Yeah, my understanding is that this wasn't really a arena team thing, but like one dude has just kind of like taken up the mantle of trying to code a bunch of vintage cube cards over the last like 2 years.
Okay.
And I assume this wasn't ready. This is just a tinfoil hat assumption, but I assume this wasn't ready to go, and they didn't want to release this yet. But they broke the glass because of the Spider-Man Fallout to like get something really cool on Arena and kind of like bolster the drop off from through the Omen Paths or whatever, because it like tanked.
Tim is dangerous because whenever Tim says he's about to put on his tinfoil hat, I know he's going to say something cynical, and the second I hear it, I'm going to be like, I think he's probably fucking right.
Yeah, is it really a tinfoil hat if it's just like stating what is the most likely outcome?
No, Tim just knows what's going on, I think.
Almost like he has insider information, people.
I'm sorry. To the listener, if you want to skip over this part, I always put the number tags down in the description below. You can skip to the beginning of the single card discussion or the episode. But just again, for prediction purposes. So about a month ago, they announced a bunch of really dumb secret layers, one of which was The Office with Dwight Schrute, right? It was like this horrendous thing as well.
About that.
And I wrote about it for a news piece for work. And in that article, I wrote a line that was something very similar to like, I wouldn't be surprised if the bonus card from this is Kevin's Chili as a reskin of Hot Soup, right? And then yesterday, somebody showed off the bonus card. It's fucking Kevin's Chili.
Are you serious?
It's not Hot Soup. It's Tragic Slip, but it's literally Kevin's Chili. Like, that's the Magic the Gathering card of Kevin fumbling his chili pot on the ground from the office.
It is honestly spooky how prescient you are about this type of stuff.
I've got to be honest, like I've had ups and downs with Magic where sometimes I think this game is awesome and sometimes I think this game is less awesome, but it's only really recently that I've been thoroughly embarrassed to say that I play Magic the Gathering.
It's like you tell your new SO or something. It's like, yeah, I play Magic Gathering, and they like go home and Google it, and it's like the first thing that shows up is fucking Kevin's Chili as Tragic Slip, and it's like, oh, yeah. This is what you play.
It's like that and Cruel Tutor. That's the first things they see.
Never hear from them ever again. They just straight up ghost you.
I do have to hand it to them. Tragic Slip being the Kevin's Chili card was the right card to do.
Okay,
funny joke.
It's really funny, but like that's the problem, right? Is it's making the game. It's making, I don't know, the whole thing is a joke, and like universes. I don't want to get into this conversation. I don't mind jokes on Magic cards; they can be funny, but like, it's just like, haha, remember this piece of pop culture that you liked? Here it is as a Magic card. It's kind of like the SpongeBob counterspell thing. Like, was the SpongeBob counterspell thing absolutely hilarious as a joke?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. But like, also, did we really need it as a Magic card?
Well, you know what it all kind of reminds me of is like back in the 90s, is like in the late 90s is when you really started to see like literally everything being a cross promotion. So like Halo Reach, Mountain Dew, you know, and like
Predators,
shit like,
man.
Yeah, or like,
dude, Game Fuel, I remember that.
Or like, yeah, like movies coming out being on like cases of, all I'm thinking of right now is like soda examples, because you know I'm thinking of like 90s convenience stores, but that's when that shit really started to happen. And when they start doing it in Magic, it's just kind of like a reminder. It's like nothing is not for sale, you know. That's what it makes me think of.
Yeah. So anyway, we host
anyways
we host tons of scheduled drafts throughout the week, including our Peasant Cube on Saturday nights, the mainline Jank Diver Cube on Sunday nights, which is going to be the focus of our discussion today. We have our F&M style drafts on Fridays, where players vote on the cube that they want to play, and we have tons and tons of guest cubes created by members of our server throughout the week. There's always plenty to do on the Jank Diver Gaming server. You can find links down below wherever you're listening to this podcast, and you can check out our socials, youtube.com/JankDiverGaming, and you can find Teld streaming on twitch.tv/TeldTalks. You'll notice from this point forward, I will not be mentioning Twitter because I don't want to spend any more of my life on Twitter. So sorry to the 2 subscribers or whatever. We basically, our YouTube channel goes up like a few subscribers every month. Our Discord channel gets slightly bigger, as time goes on. Twitter has never budged. Never.
You mean we're not popping off on X, the everything app?
We're not, and maybe we need to migrate to Blue Sky or whatever. But yeah, we basically have had the same number of Twitch or Twitter subscribers for like 4 years straight or something like that. So I'm not going to mention Twitter. I hate that cesspool of a website, and I need to spend less time on it. So.
Apparently the vibe on Twitter has gotten real weird.
Don't even know. Don't need to hear
that. I will say, I think trying to have Magic discussions or like discuss in-depth topics on a thing that limits you to 250 characters is the fundamental problem. Like, it's just a bad place to try to talk about like anything meaningful.
Didn't they take the character limit off?
I think you have to subscribe or something. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? We're not going to mention it anymore. Find us on YouTube and Discord. That's where you can come talk to us and engage with our content. And I actually even have a arena powered cube video up on YouTube that was kind of fun. You know, got a turn 1 Kappa Cannoneer at one point.
Oh shit! You got a vid up? I'll have to watch that.
I got a vid. There was a heartbreaker in there, but the rest of it, there was actually a very, very. If you watch anything and you want my take on like vintage cube when you are having fun, the second match against my blue-red opponent was a very sweet kind of like back and forth, like what I want out of vintage cube, not that broken nonsense. But let's get into our single card discussion. So we are going to be talking about lower rarity cards in higher rarity cubes, but we're going to talk about a lot of cards in the episode, so we're not necessarily relating the single card discussion to the episode here. So we brainstormed a couple things that we could talk about, and Teld had a good idea of bringing up Nissa Who Shakes the World as a card that at one point was like the defining green card. It was broke, you know. I guess I can read the card first, but yeah, you know, this card has served its time and is no longer at the pinnacle of like green 5s, like in fact Vivian has mostly overtaken.
Which is funny because I don't think this was like the perception that Vivian has been in the cube forever.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that because I think there's been some contextual changes as to why that is.
I'd be interested because I can't remember which one of you it was, but I feel like one of you at one point thought that 5-mana Vivian was like a middling card, which I personally found offensive at the time.
To put it in perspective, Vivian is probably considered like best or second best 5-drop in the cube at the moment. Like, it's one of the best.
It's a crazy card.
Maybe this is a joint discussion between the two. So
okay.
I guess one of you guys read Nissa real quick while I pull up Vivian. I can put a side by side for the viewer.
I shall. Nissa Who Shakes the World, legendary, iconic planeswalker from War of the Spark. I remember when this came out. 5 mana for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. It has a passive. Was War of the Spark the first set to give planeswalkers passives?
Yes.
I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one of the first passive planeswalkers. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green mana. So all of your forests, basic or otherwise, tap for 2 green mana. It +1, put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target non-creature land you control. Untap it. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with vigilance and haste. That's still a land. And then it has a -8 that I almost never see happen. You pull all of the forests out of your deck, throw them on the table, and they all have indestructible.
Huh, didn't know that even existed.
Yeah, it's a thing. I've seen people I've actually played games where people ulted their, not in our cube, but like online, where someone ults the Nissa that they could have just killed me with. Won the game as a result. But anyway, basically, like Nissa's like traditional play pattern, and it sounds like it's not really doing that much for people anymore. I haven't played it in a while. But basically, you would slam it, untap a forest, and then like immediately make like another 2-mana play after basically getting like a free attack in, because the land has vigilance. And you know, the mana doubling was really strong, but also this card would just beat you to death. But it sounds like it's fallen off a lot. When this card was initially spoiled, there was a Cube podcast that totally panned it. They were like, "I already have 5 mana. Like, why do I need more mana?" Well, it's card advantage. If you have card advantage in your deck, doubling your mana as early as turn 3, if you manage to ramp twice, just really puts the game out of reach.
You know, it's funny, Chris, because my argument as to why this card has fallen off so bad is actually going to be the I guess the horseshoe argument for the thing you just talked about.
Gotcha.
We're going right back around to we already have 5 mana. We don't need more mana.
Well, yeah, no, it sounds like we've arrived there. We're playing 1 green 6-drop and 1 green 7-drop, and those are like the biggest cards in the cube. So I will also say this before I turn or give the floor over. One problem that you could always run into with Nissa was you start animating lands, and then your lands get popped by like a Wrath. or your opponent just like Doom Blades a forest and you don't have another one to play. And like, yes, you have double mana, but if you're in a 2-color deck, you know, you might only have like 2 forests on the table to begin with. So you could run into problems where turning your lands into creatures was actually a pretty serious liability.
Yeah.
So take it away, Teld. Tell me why this card sucks now.
Yeah, so I have been known to make let's say hot takes and be a little too aggressive about what I've said before. I'm not going to say that Nissa is unplayable. I think it's still a totally fine card that you can put in your deck and it will do its job reasonably well. I do think it is the worst 5-drop in the cube in terms of green 5s. Like we did just cut the 2 weakest ones that I thought were worse. So I think at this point, I think all the ones we're playing just fit the context of our cube better. The biggest reason is that once you have 5 mana in our current cube environment, there just isn't that much that you need like double that for, right? So you have to think of this as Nissa is essentially, you're ramping to it. It's going to give you some flexibility where you can spend mana and then untap to get an attacker, which is nice. Like there are times where you're going to be like, all right, I play my Nissa, I untap. I can either protect my Nissa or I can, spend the 2 mana to do something else. And then if I untap with it, I'm going to have, essentially unlimited mana, which can be powerful. The biggest problem is like when you animate your lands, there's so much premium removal in the cube at this point that like you sometimes get Stone Rain multiple times when you try to use this card. There are more aggressive cards than ever that can pressure this card. So like you're now faced in a position where the card's probably going to trade or even run over your land, right? The stat lines have increased to that a 3/3 is no longer like when this card came out, the average stat line for a 2 or a 3-drop were like 2/2, 3/3, 3/2, that sort of thing. And I would say now the stat lines for those cards have just bumped up enough that it is difficult for this card to be a very board dominating card.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to something like Vivien, which I think has gone from kind of like middling to being the best 5-drop in the cube, I think the difference is that Nissa has a limit to the number of times we can plus, right? Vivien is going to make something every single turn, no matter what we do. In addition, the reach is more valuable than Vigilance. There are a lot of
Vivien.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So Vivien Monsters Advocate is from Ikoria. It's 3 green, so same cost as Nissa for a legendary planeswalker. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you can cast creature spells to the top of your library. You can +1 to create a 3/3 beast creature token, and then put either a vigilance, reach, or trample counter on it. And then it has a -2 ability that basically when you cast your next creature spell, you get to search your library for a creature with a lower mana value and put it onto the battlefield. And it starts with 3 loyalty. Yeah, so all the text on this card just plays better in the current iteration of the cube. It's been called by a lot of our players that this cube is just the mid-range cube, right? Like, you want to be grindy. You want to be able to create pressure reliably. You want to be able to accumulate resources while adding to the board. Vivien just kind of does what Nissa does with her plus, except you can do it every turn without risking your lands. You never risk your mana to it. It makes reach blockers for the flyers that are in the cube. And then it draws you on average like half a card a turn. Which is the card advantage that you want to pair with your Nissa. The Vivien just does, right? You already have 5 mana. You don't need more mana, but you would like some more cards. And on top of that, the -2, it doesn't come up like all the time, but when you use it, you usually just win the game on the spot. Like we like -2, we play a Vorinclex, we go get a questing beast, like we just win the game.
Game's over.
Game's over. Yeah.
I can't think of too many examples off the top of my head, but I know I'm not going to dig right now and try to figure it out, but like there are also like combinations of creatures that you can get where like they benefit from hitting the table on the same turn. So you can set up some pretty powerful shit. Like if you have some, like let's say you have like and again I'm just spitballing here, but let's say you have like a red creature in your cube and in your deck that like by start of combat can like give another creature haste or something. You can play your fucking Shonker, go get the thing that will give it haste, and then give it haste. Like you can set up some cool interactions with this as well. It has almost like a combo-y kind of vibe sometimes.
Yeah, one that I think would come up reasonably often in this cube is like you play your 5-drop, you go get Doomscar Warrior. Doomscar Warrior puts a counter on your 3-drop, and then you attack and you instantly get to draw some cards.
Yeah, that's a great example.
So yeah, there's just so much potential with this card. And I think like it really is a situation of like you've ramped already, right? Because that's how you got your 5-drop into play. And like the additional mana just isn't as valuable as the additional utility and card advantage that you're generating off of your card. Vivien's much harder to attack into. Every turn that it's in play, you're getting further ahead. Like Nissa doesn't actually get you further ahead because as you're using your mana, yeah, you can turn your lands into creatures, which is cool, but you're not actually generating cards. And like, God forbid you get Wrath, right? Like, there are times where like, you know, you have like 3 lands, you ramp into Nissa and like you plus for a couple of turns and then like you put a bunch of creatures to play, but you don't win the game. And then your opponent wraths you and you have like Nissa and like a forest. It's like it's like what you have left. So it's just a risky card. I think the biggest thing though is that unlike some of, for example, in something like Powered Cube or Vintage Cube or whatever, Nissa's a little more powerful than Vivian because the kind of unlimited mana thing, there's just more outlets for, you know, for ramping into a Crater Hoof or playing a green, you know, playing some sort of big mana sink that just we don't have access to or we choose not to play. Like we don't play cards like Indra's Forerunners and Crater Hoof Behemoth because they just are so absurd in what they do to games. But if that's what you're trying to get to, Nissa's a lot more powerful. Like it opens up much more powerful plays. But our cube is a mid-range cube. It's a value cube. So Vivian just being a better card and generating value just plays much better into this environment.
Yeah. God, sorry. That just made me think about back when we got the Strixhaven bonus sheet and our cube was way less powerful because the card pool was way smaller. We still put Natural Order in here with Crater.
Oh no!
And then we did the classic. I won with it, and then we banned it. So
yeah. But just to be clear, I just want to, you know, I know I said this at the beginning, but I just want to reiterate that like just because I'm a little down on Nissa compared to Vivian, I think Vivian. It's more that I think Vivian is incredibly well positioned rather than Nissa is unplayable in this particular example. I think Nissa is just like not as good as it used to be.
Agree 100%. And there, I would firmly say that there was a time where these were flip-flopped, where Nissa was maybe the best green card in our queue, period. If not tied for like, you know, the top.
Yeah, I would first pick
Vivian,
I would first pick
Vivian
it.
was not. Vivian was not. Vivian was always underrated by myself and other people, and it's definitely come to fruition now. But like Nissa was better for a long period of time, and you know, it had its constructed stint. I believe it shared the same. Yeah, it was definitely the same constructed as a, you know, bound in whatever the Krasis is called, Jellyfish Hydra. And that was a big deal to have double mana. But like, and our curve used to push way higher in our cube at the time that, you know, we were playing both these cards when they were first printed. So like you had a lot of uses for the extra mana. Now it's just like, where are you filtering all that extra mana into like a bigger Goose Mother or whatever? Like you don't really need a bigger Goose Mother for that card to be good once you have 5 or 6 mana. I will say, I mean, there are some games, like you would see this a lot back in its heyday where like trying to beat the Nissa by killing the lands just doesn't work because they play one more forest and yeah, you killed their land, but now they have 2 more mana anyway. So it was like a losing proposition to try to keep up with the lands. But you are right that like nowadays with how efficient removal is, you know, how Nissa's extra mana generation isn't really pushing it over the top. Like you're just kind of putting your lands at risk, whereas something like Vivian is just making 3/3s without that risk. And, you know, case in point, I really wish this was in the Vintage Cube recording that I did, but I played a game where someone went turn 3 Nissa, and I was like, uh-oh, but they didn't have a follow-up for the big mana, and I had a Flage, so I was just like, okay, I'll Flage down every creature you turn into a land, and they eventually ended up with 0 lands in play, and it was like, okay, well, cool Nissa, you know, and if that was Vivian, it wouldn't have been as much of a disaster, because I would have been able to kill their 3/3s, but I'm not strip mining them every turn on top of it, so.
Right.
Just a chime in real quick. I just wanted to say the last time we had a 3/0 that played a card that cost more than 5 was back in July.
Yeah, I do want to shout out one thing, one place where I think Nissa is really, really good, and this is a pretty niche interaction, but I do have to mention it, is that if you get Nissa going with Bristly Bill, it is really disgusting because Bristly Bill has a very expensive activated ability that doubles counters on cards, and Nissa puts a bunch of counters on your lands and gives you a bunch of mana. So that particular interaction is really powerful, but I think you have to be looking for stuff like that are like, how do I use the whole buffalo, as they say, as opposed to Vivian that just naturally gives you the buffalo, cuts it up, you know, brings Thanksgiving dinner, and you know, does everything.
Well, that -8 part of the buffalo can go in the trash. We don't use that part of the buffalo, and maybe it's a good thing that the Phyrexians got to Nissa because the completed Nissa is just an absurd card compared to either of these. If you want to talk,
I forgot
best green planeswalker ever printed, probably.
Yeah, so we did just kind of increase the power level of the cube again.
Don't even say.
I don't know about that one.
Don't even say.
No. I'm joking. Like, not only is that card absurdly powerful, but it's also really boring.
Yeah, it's just Crater Hoof Behemoth that makes 8/8s for you.
Yeah.
When you can't Crater Hoof them, you just make 8/8s.
cheaper Crater Hoof.
Yeah, and interacts with problematic permanents for you at the cost of 1 loyalty.
Hey, you know what I learned about that card the other day though? From Vintage Cube. Again, learning things from Vintage Cube. So it has a plus ability that spits out the dudes, right? It's
It's such a problem.
Yeah, it's it's Nissa Ascended Animist. It has +1, I think. Make a XX equal to the number of loyalty counters on Nissa. If you can burn it in response, it produces a smaller token. So if you can because it doesn't check the loyalty when you activate it, it checks loyalty on resolution. So I was able to they had a Nissa on 4 or whatever, and they plussed it up to 5, and I had a deal 5 in hand, and I was able to kill it, and it made a 0/0 token because it had 0
sick.
loyalty. So I don't know if I ever realized that you can burn it in response to that ability to shrink the token, essentially. But anyway, yeah, Green Planeswalkers, Nissa. At one point, I was considering this like a Power 9 arena card, and it's not even in that conversation now. So,
yeah. If you are playing something like Arena Cube, where you just have infinite big things, I would assume Nissa is probably very good there. The more big expensive things that you have to ramp up to that are more than 5 mana, the better that card becomes.
Indeed, it does. And Nissa had its time in this. I'm not sad to see it go or fall behind. Like it definitely, it was a breakout card in Standard. After like a week, people caught on to Nissa being like this kind of huge engine type card, and it really was.
Well, you nailed it earlier when you mentioned Hydroid Crisis. When the Golgari mid-range deck from like Ixalan Standard became like wet Golgari over time with Hydroid Crisis. Nissa, the combination with like people would just play Nissa and then you'd play an Enormous Crisis. That was like that was the mid-range thing.
Games would never end because your opponent would do the same thing. And
dude, whatever. I'm not going to go. It was literally almost a decade ago, but like that Ixalan Standard was great, and by the War of the Spark just completely ruined Standard.
Crackling Drake being a playable Standard card will never not be my favorite thing.
Yeah, dude, 8 Drake
was a good time. Okay, let's get into this main episode here. So we are talking about the traits of commons and uncommons that make them viable for higher rarity cubes. And I want to kick this off by having a little bit of a short spiel about rarity in cube. And then I'll kind of like throw it over to you guys to talk about some of these traits. But the main thing that I want to kind of like instill in people is that like rarity doesn't matter in your cube. Obviously, there's exceptions if you're doing like Peasant Cube or Pauper Cube, or you have a financial burden to build in your cube in paper, which is not something we have to worry about. But like once you're actually sitting there playing in a cube, the rarity symbols on the cards don't matter. Like they just don't do anything. They don't differentiate anything. And I think I'm sure there are some number of cube curators out there who, when a new set comes out, they filter the set by like rares and mythics, and they're like, okay, what are the big splashy cards? Maybe even uncommons. But I think people are doing themselves a pretty big disservice these days as cube designers if they're ignoring the lower rarity stuff in a cube, because some of the best stuff to come out of the last year, especially this play booster era that we've been in for about a year and a half, some of the best stuff and most cubable stuff is commons and uncommons, right? And part of the reason is that the rares and mythics are often these really splashy, expensive cards, and how much room do you really have in your cube for splashy 4-drops and 5-drops, right? Like, you always have more room to fiddle around with the 1s, 2s, and 3s, but you're only going to have, like, a 5-drop in any given section of your cube, maybe 2, so you just don't really need to focus on the new 5-drop dragon or 5-drop black creature in every single cube that comes out as a rare or mythic. And you do need to, if you want to make the best cube possible and you want to play the best cards you can for your cube, you really do need to start focusing on commons and uncommons if you're not already doing so. So that's my little spiel. Don't rarity is whatever. It doesn't matter outside of limited drafting, where sometimes you'll make a decision like, oh, this uncommon is super important for my deck, I should take that over these commons that I might get extra copies of later. Like that's a kind of like not important consideration even for limited most of the time, but for cube it just doesn't matter. Don't worry about the symbols that show up on the cards. Like, read the text and determine if the text is something you want in your cube.
Yeah, especially if that symbol is a Modern Horizon 3 symbol, then you should definitely
yeah, that the Modern Horizons 3 symbol carries a lot more weight to it than a lot of other symbols. So maybe don't ignore the Modern Horizons 3 symbols, but we're going to give a bunch of examples during the course of this episode, but just to kind of like throw out some ideas. Unable to Scream is a very good one that Teld tagged here, because that's a common, It kind of feels like, oh, this is that filler limited blue enchantment that they put in every set. It's like, I'm going to ignore that. Like, how could that possibly be good enough for my high power cube? And it's like, no, Unable to Scream is an excellent removal spell for a color where it especially excels, right? And Unable to Scream is the blue aura that makes a creature a 0/2 toy artifact that can't attack and has no abilities. I know the blue Swords to Plowshares joke has been thrown around for like 15 years now, but
it's shockingly accurate.
It's the blue Swords to Plowshares. So like,
I think it's funny too, because I've said before that you need to play retail limited and not just that way you see these cards. And like, I know it doesn't tell you everything because you don't know how to play against other powerful cards, but Unable to Scream is actually one of those cards that you kind of have to see it in the mainline cube to understand how good it is, because it's a card that as you scale up in power and there's less sack and bounce effects floating around, it just gets better and better and better as there's more creatures that you need to efficiently kill. Like, the jump from this card in retail and peasant level to like the mainline cube, I think it goes from being a good card to an amazing card.
Yeah, it's shockingly powerful. I wonder at times, honestly. I mean, obviously, Swords to Plowshares is a stronger card. I'm not saying it's Swords to Plowshares, but the fact that Swords to Plowshares is efficient enough that we consider it, ban worthy. Like, I think this card is, like, for me at least, this card is like kind of on the edge of that, especially considering what color it's in.
Yeah, blue having access to basically remove a creature from the battlefield
for one mana,
for a single mana, especially because they're iterating on this a lot now. This is just something they're pushing in blue since Duskmourn forward. Like, we got, was it Fresh Start from Tarkir, which is worse than Unable to Scream, but still a solid like role player as a 2 mana take something offline with flash. Sleep Magic from Final Fantasy is probably in the conversation as well, and they do mess around with the like legitimate business person card. What I forget what the original was called, but
it's that's gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah, I always forget the name of this one because I want to call it legitimate business person, but that's not the name of the card. But
Person of Interest, is that the name of it? No, that's the
Protective
red guy
Services or something. What is the what is the name of the card? Here, hold on, let me Scryfall Oracle Legit. Witness Protection. Okay,
witness protection. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it turns out
Protective Services.
Yeah, it turns out that the creature still having 1 power and being able to attack is just way worse than making it into a 0/2.
Yeah, for sure. Deep Cavern Bats was a great example of this, where I think we all missed it. I think Teld was higher on it than Chris and I were for sure from the beginning, and then like this, it became pretty obvious pretty early on in the Lost Caverns life cycle that Deep Cavern Bats was like the real deal. But again, if you're just filtering by rares and mythics, like, you would have never even considered the card in the first place. And I'm sure there were some people who were on it from the first day.
I'm definitely was higher on it than you two, but multi-format All-Star and Vintage Cube Staple was not on my my radar for that card, admittedly.
I'm not trying to drag anybody, because like I get, obviously I get stuff wrong all the time, more often than you guys do. But when that card was first starting to get talked about, I wasn't where I should have been at on it initially. It took me a while to get there. But I can't remember who said it, but somebody said, like, I think I like Freebooter better than this card because I think the extra point of toughness is valuable against, like, flying tokens, and, like, the power level gap between those two cards is just insane.
It really is. And that's an interesting part of this discussion is it's really easy to miss stuff like this because when you have a comparison to an older card that, like, really isn't that good. Like, we just mentioned Witness Protection. We've seen those blue auras up until the point they printed Unable to Scream, so it's very easy to be like, oh, this is that type of effect. They've never been that good in the past. Why should this one be any different? And you don't really catch on to that sometimes until you actually see it played, which is where playing a lot of limited or watching some amount of limited can really help. And Deep Cavern Bats had the like direct analog of Kite Sail Freebooter, and turns out like there are just enough knobs turned on it. It was very easy to look at Kite Sail Freebooter and be like, oh, well, this has an extra point of toughness and does a similar thing. Like, it's probably better, right? And that's what a lot of people did, myself and Chris included. And then it's like, no, you play with the card. Lifelink matters a lot. The toughness really doesn't matter. It can grab any non-land card. Like, there are enough knobs on this card to make it stand out not just stand out from the analog, but like way surpass the analog into, playable territory, to good territory. What is this? The best black 2-drop that we have in our cube full of rares and mythic rares? Like,
you could probably make that argument. Another thing that has just kind of occurred to me is sometimes the rarity symbol on a card will make you psych yourself out. Mm-hmm. And like the example for me is stock up. Because when you guys were initially having the Edge of Eternity's conversation, like I've been kind of disengaged for a while now, or Ether Drift, yeah. Like I've been trying to kind of disengage for a while now, and I can acknowledge that. So like you guys had already put down a bunch of notes on stuff that you thought we should review. Like we basically talked about the cards that you guys identified because I just wasn't really paying attention during spoiler season at all. But I was going through the card file to see if I had anything to add, and I saw stock up, and I don't think we had it on the initial list to talk about. And I was reading it, and I was like, this reads as, like, fully crazy to me. But then I was like, they didn't add it to the doc, and it reads as powerful, but it's an uncommon, so, like, am I reading this text box and, like, am I overestimating this card? Like, am I missing something? And if it had a rare symbol on it, which I think it probably could have, right, it's that good, I probably would have been like, no, this is absolutely as good as the card that I'm reading, definitely. But anyway, I'm babbling a little bit because I'm a little fried this morning. But what I'm getting at is sometimes if you'll, at least for me, like I'll read an incredibly powerful uncommon, and the fact that it is an uncommon will make me second guess whether or not I'm like overestimating it or like trying too hard to be into it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And that card specifically, it reads like I just glossed over it as 3 mana, the divination variant of a set, and I didn't really give it a lot of thought until you actually see it in play, and then you're like, oh, turns out that's a lot of cards.
Yeah.
I mean that just reinforces two things I've already said, right? Like rarity doesn't matter on the cards, like it does not matter, and you're absolutely right. It can psych you out. It'd almost be better if you could go through a site and just like blank out the rarity symbol on every card that you're reading, right? Like, and just look through the set with no predetermined ideas of like what power level should be assigned to what rarity or whatever. And then the second thing being the analog, right? It's so easy to dismiss stock up as like, oh, this looks like slightly better divination. It's like, no, it's significantly better divination, right? Yeah. And sometimes you need to play with the card to actually see that happen, or word of mouth, that stock up caught on pretty quickly in constructed formats. So what type of things, what type of elements make a common or uncommon something worth considering for a stronger cube? We're going to use our own cube as an example, kind of a modern power level cube using the arena card pool. And, some of the obvious things that come to mind, just cheap role players, right? Like not these big splashy effects, but just cheap cards. And I want to emphasize cheap there. And I looked through our cube and I was a little surprised. I was expecting to see maybe 1 or 2 slip through the crack, but we don't have a single card in our cube, our 360 card cube, that's common or uncommon and costs 4 or more mana. Every single one, with the exception of like your Lord of the Rings land cyclers, your MDFCs, like the modal cards.
Which Dr. Frenzy?
Chrysalis is this was monocolored section. This was monocolored.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I didn't look at gold. I'm assuming there's actually quite a few in gold, but I could be wrong. But like every single monocolored card that's common or uncommon costs 1, 2, or 3 mana for us. Which is just going to show that like the commons and uncommons that tend to be pushed are the cheaper cards, right? Because once you get into 4-drop, 5-drop, 6-drop commons and uncommons, you're talking about the limited fodder that's like replaceable and limited, and then it's rubbing up against the really busted cards at rare and mythic, because that's when they start to get like crazy as 3, 4, 5 plus mana at rare or mythic.
Yeah, you're 100% on that. For a while there, we had Llanowar Visionary in here, which is a 3 mana 2/2 that taps for a mana and ETBs draws a card. Like that's just a lot of good value on a single card. But generally speaking, I mean, as far as like rares and mythics are concerned, like at 3-drop creatures is where you start to get into some really crazy shit territory, and for the most part, commons and uncommons just can't really keep up. Like I can't imagine that I don't think that they literally can print a common or uncommon that's as powerful as like Sephiroth or Tashana's Tidebinder or something like that. To your point, Tim, you can't put enough knobs on it, or you can't have it do like niche or interesting enough things to just be really, really jacked. Like 1 and 2 is where you see that. And I mean, especially at one drops, like aggressive one drops, I mean, it's not really the case in any of our sections anymore. They're packed with rares now, but there's a really long period of Magic's history where a lot of your Savannah Lions type creatures that were still good enough for white aggressive decks at that stage in Magic's development, a lot of those were just commons, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that at 1 to 2 mana, there's really just only so many knobs you can turn, right? There's only so much room for stats. So, like, it's unlikely that they would print, like, a 3/3 for 1 mana, right? That's just not something that I expect to see. You know, there's a lot, I guess the differential, the gap between the power level of something at 1 mana or 2 mana outside of like Modern Horizons 3 cards, right? Like Guided Souls, Also Pride aside, Ragavan, that sort of thing. Outside of those Modern Horizon cards that we don't play, there's really in normal sets only a small amount of space to turn those knobs because they're trying to make sure they don't break constructed. And like, sure, you could technically print some sort of hyper busted like super stat monster at 1 or 2 mana, but if it breaks constructed, it's going to get banned, right? It's like, they're trying to avoid that, generally speaking. And 3 mana is really where they start opening up that range of like, this is the acceptable current mana value for a powerful card. And to kind of draw an analog, like when I played Marvel Snap, a lot of the design mistakes in that game were at 2 mana. And it's where they accidentally put, you know, they made a card that generated card advantage, really good card advantage, cost, you know, be like premium stats or have like normal on rate stats. And that really would make a really powerful card. But then the fix for that was just take a point of power away from it. And now it's balanced. And so like in Magic, because they can't do that, they usually just err on the side of caution. And we don't really see a lot of super powerful stat lines on any creature at super low mana values, right? You have to work a little bit for it. Something like Regal Bunnicorn, for example, is like a 2 mana, you know, 6/6 or something, but you have to have a lot of stuff in play. It's not going to just do it on its own.
And you wouldn't see that at common or uncommon. That would just be unreasonable because they have to design these with the limited formats in mind. And, you know, one of the conversation points going around, we talked about this with Danelius, myself and Teld a little bit, is, you know, there was a lot of discussion about one drops were pushing limited towards these hyper aggressive formats for like years on end. And then, you know, there was a lot of complaining going around about it. And by a lot of complaining, I mean, limited resources who have, you know, big voices in the community. And they've really cut back on aggressive one drops that come in or common or uncommon. And some people are upset by that. They're like, I wish there were aggressive good one drops in these more recent formats. People. He's the people for sure. But then, you know, I asked the question like, well, what do you want that one drop to look like? And it's a lot harder to theorize a pushed one drop that also doesn't start ruining a limited format. So like that's easier said than done to design that in the first place. But point being, like there's only so much power they can pack into a low rarity 1 or 2 drop without, you know, destroying things. So the 1 and 2 drops you do see at common and uncommon in these higher power level cubes are not necessarily pushed on power level. They're doing some other things, but they are cheap cards. And I'll let Chris talk about some of the other things that you're looking for in these kind of like playable commons and uncommons. Unless
you're red, and then you do get stat monsters at 1 mana for some reason. Like all the red cards are in this cube because they're just ridiculously high stats.
I don't know if you saw it, Teld, but Teld was like, they wouldn't print a 3/3 for 1 mana, and they're like the next set literally has a 3/3 for 1 mana. It has downside, but it's just like, here's a 1 mana 3/3. Yeah, Chris, what are we looking at here? What are some of the things that stand out to you when you're evaluating these lower rarity cards?
Well, they usually for me they fall into 1 or 2 categories, and the first category is it just provides enough solid value that just scales with any power level. And honestly, the format that usually takes is like card advantage. So hopefully this will make sense. Like, card draw is as powerful as the cards you can draw, right? So draw a card is like literally always going to be good, right? Whether you're drawing more cards that draw cards, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. Drawing a card is always good regardless of your power level. So you mentioned Regal Bunnicorn is kind of this huge goify, you know, white rare. In the same section we have Splitskin Doll, which is 1 and a white for a 2/1 artifact creature, and when it ETBs, you draw a card, then you discard a card unless you control another creature with power 2 or less. So you loot, as like a baseline, which that by itself, we wouldn't just play like a 2-1 ETB loot.
Raffine's Informant isn't making it.
Right, that's not powerful. That's not powerful enough for our power level of cube. But the thing is, the way that most white sections are designed is you're going to have a lot of small ball creatures running around, and 2-1 just draw a card. That's just a good card, right? It's not an amazing card. It's not going to blow anybody's mind, but you put 2 power into play for 2 mana, and you're not down a resource. That's just rock solid every time. And I'm not saying that like this card's irreplaceable in the section or anything like that, but this is just an example of like that's just good. Like the inspectors famously, like Novice Inspector and Thraben Inspector. It's just a 1/2 body for 1 that leaves behind a clue that scales with environments. It's just basically always going to be solid. So like that would be category number 1 for me. And then category number 2 is once you get into, I've said this before, I think that the power level between a commons only format and a format that allows for uncommons, I almost think in certain ways the power level gap is bigger between like pauper and peasant than it is between like peasant and rare. And that might be an overreach. That might not actually be the case. But uncommons are where you start to see them printing synergy pieces. And the thing about synergy pieces is they scale in like a very linear, almost linear way with how powerful the cards around them that are doing the thing are. Like Blood Artist is a perfect example. You know, if you don't know Blood Artist, it's 1 and a black for 0/1. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, yours or your opponent's target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Blood Artist does exactly the same thing whether your sacrifice engine is some 4-mana like uncommon in like a peasant cube or it's Yawgmoth. Like it does the same thing either way. It scales in power level with how powerful your fodder generation and your sacrifice engines are. It always does its job, and in fact, it's like one of the cards that makes the style of deck even do what it does. So if you have a sacrifice deck in your peasant cube, it's going to be a critical piece of what your deck does there. In a rare cube, same deal. Now, Blood Artist is not like at the pinnacle anymore. Like they printed Marionette Apprentice, also an uncommon, but let's be fair, it's a Modern Horizons card that's like better. And then like obviously like I like Bran Executioner Thane better, and that is rare. But the point is like these synergy pieces, they scale in power with whatever it is that they're supporting. And as a result of that, if you're going to run that style of deck, they're always going to be good enough. I mean, look at our Is It section. Our Is It section is 3 uncommons.
Yeah,
it's 3 uncommon cards.
Young Pyromancer is a good example of this. Not that we're on Young Pyromancer anymore, but like it's the cheaper and more efficiently your Spellslinger style deck is operating at higher rarities, the more like juice you're going to get out of a card like Young Pyromancer.
Exactly. Or, you know, in the case of like our Is It section, Sprite Dragon. If you're running like a peasant, is Sprite Dragon like too good for the peasant cube? Have you guys banned it out of there yet, or is
it? It was gone for a while. I think it's appropriate. I think we're actually on it right now, but it's
okay.
It's appropriate for the times.
Okay. Well, Sprite Dragon is it's a blue and a red for a 1/1 with flying and haste, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Sprite Dragon. Whether you're playing a lower power environment where you're deliberately gating how powerful your spells are by MV, let's say like you're not playing a bunch of 1-mana burn and stuff like that, you know, it's more expensive. Sprite Dragon is still like a good card for that deck. And then in a higher level cube where you're playing, you know, your bolts and the best cantrips and all that other shit, this card just like completely pops off, right? It's a simple text box. That's the thing about these synergy pieces. They all have relatively simple text boxes, but the way those text boxes interact with the complexity and power of the cards around them that are enabling them allows them to scale into basically any environment where the archetype that they're supporting is good enough.
Yeah, that adds up. You got token makers here as well, which
yes, yeah,
leads me to my boy, the long-standing Clarion Spirit, which
hell yeah.
I mean, just to remind people of Clarion Spirit, we've got the monitor. The Edge of Eternity's blue-white guy is very similar as well, but Clarion Spirit, 1 and a white for a 2/2. When you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 flying spirit token. And you know we waffle around about this card in our mainline cube. It's quite good in Peasant Cube as well, but the feature of this card, it can do something that no other card can. Like imagine a 2-drop that was just 2-mana 2/2 make a 1/1 fly, and when it enters the battlefield, that would be a rock solid card. Like, I don't know that it's exciting enough to be a rare, but that would be a very strong card, and Clarion Spirit can go above and beyond that. Like, it has a floor, it has a ceiling, but it is a uncommon that is capable of doing rare level plays, well above and beyond its rarity symbol. And, it sticks around. Sometimes we have to discuss, like, should we cut Clarion Spirit? But I do think it is a hallmark uncommon as a token maker that's doing something that you usually see reserved on rares.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we played more 1-drops, Clarion Spirit gets more exciting. Like, we're currently not on that many white 1-drops, so it's a little hard to double trigger or to get the double spell sometimes. What if instead of like a 2/2 that made a 1/1 though, what if maybe it was like a 1/2 for 2 mana and it made like a 2/1, maybe of a certain, we could pick a type, a tribe, and when that tribe, something of that tribe died, maybe it could flip into a planeswalker. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that'd be fine, dude. Oh my god, that fucking card.
Should have been an uncommon. Honestly, should have been an uncommon.
I'm angry at them too, because it feels like they were just like, okay, all of the power that we're gonna put on white cards for the next 4 years, we're gonna put onto these impossible designs that you don't want to play.
By the way, another vintage cube aside, apparently Johnny, the number 1 card according to the data in the entire arena powered cube.
That does not shock me.
Is a Johnny? Maybe a hot take. Is a Johnny the most powerful Magic card ever printed? Like.
Oh,
just
God,
in terms of like,
that.
and for like limited, limited Magic.
We can't do that.
We can't do that right now. When you guys told me that Boros is doing as well as it's doing in Vintage Cube right now, it just immediately made sense to me. Like, if you are going into an environment where you're playing Cube with a lot of people who don't really play Cube, and they're like, oh, cool, this is like a synergistic, whatever, like, I'm going to try to do like a complex design here or whatever. The best thing you can do if you want to spike it is just go in and force an aggro deck, like, every time. Do you guys remember the first iteration of the Chromatic Cube?
I never played it.
I only played it once or twice, but it quickly became apparent.
Aggro or something.
Yeah, it quickly became apparent, like, people were going to go in there to try to do the fun thing. So if you wanted to spike it, you just play an objectively bad aggro deck, but it was an aggro deck, and you just win.
I have no issue. Speaking of, I mean, one of the cards I'm having a lot of success with in the Powered Cube is Corey Steelcutter, and the comparison of Corey Steelcutter to Clarion Spirit is like, it's an apt comparison. Obviously, Steelcutter is like super super busted in comparison, but like you're seeing an uncommon kind of like fit that hallmark of like doing the thing that the rare is doing, and that is why Clarion Spirit like sticks around and is worth noting as, kind of a key uncommon that can, break the mold of what you expect out of lower rarity cards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, your little small ball card advantage creatures, your token makers, mana dorks. You didn't really talk about mana dorks yet. I do feel like that's probably just self-explanatory, right? Like
it is though. There is a bit of context too. That, like, we talked about 3 mana being the break point in modern Magic, where like you get to play good cards. Like, really, really powerful cards is like 3 mana, at least at our cube level. And so being able to jump the curve, play a 1-drop that then gives you that on turn 2 is really, really broken, because these cards really are much more powerful than the 2-drops that they would be competing against.
Right. Yeah. And it's like it's pretty well worn territory at this point. It's not really like, oh, here's like a hot, interesting take that like dorks are synergy pieces. They're very direct synergy pieces, but they're synergy pieces. Yeah, I mean, making 1 extra mana is good if you're casting a clunky 3-drop common, and that's what the cube is doing, and it's also really insanely good when you're turn 2ing a Surrock. Yes. It scales, making extra mana scales in power with the power level of the things that you're accelerating out.
Yeah. Now for the dorks, there's a density conversation there, right? Because pretty much all of the rare dorks are better than all of the lower rarity dorks. Like, so if you're trying to limit the number of like 1 mana dorks you're playing, like we do currently right now, you're probably just going to play a bunch of rares, because I mean, we were playing Elvish Mystic literally like 3 days ago or whatever, or Land of War Elves or whatever, and we decided to swap it to a Hierarch, but that was, Land of War Elves wasn't there as a, statement that we thought it was better than a Hierarch or anything. It was just the iconic card was something we wanted to see in the list, and ever since we're restricted to like 3 or 4 dorks, because the 1 mana dorks kind of break our cube a little bit, so we're just playing a bunch of rare dorks. But you see in the vintage cube, a 540 cube, they just want a density of those 1 mana plays. They want to play almost as many as they can, so you do see
Elves of Deep Shadow.
Avacyn's Pilgrim, Elvish Mystic.
What's the one that makes us? What's the one that makes a colorless mana?
Boreal Druid.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they went that deep. Like, there's no Finhorn elves as far as I know, but like you do get into the weeds just for density purposes. But if they weren't doing that, if they didn't just want people to have access to 10 1-mana dorks, it would be all the rares. The rares do outclass the commons in this category. Removal. There's not really much of a like revelation to be had here, but
yeah.
If you go look through your list, you might actually be surprised like how much common and uncommon removal you're playing in like your vintage style, legacy style cubes, and that's because like every set needs removal, especially for limited, so it needs to be accessible, so it's usually printed at lower rarities. And honestly, a thing that just like 1-for-1 kills a creature isn't the most exciting thing to open as a rare, so the rare removal spells tend to be like a little more flashy, like Chainsaw, Quag Feast, burn down the house. I just read that off of our notes. That's not flashy, but I did want to just kind of like look through. I looked through our cube yesterday a little bit, and I was just like, well, let's go look at red real quick. And I counted up all the non-creatures that I would count as removal spells, and you know, it's actually a little more surprising than I thought. 13 of the 16 red removal spells we're playing are common or uncommon, and only 3 of them are rare. One of them's a sweeper, one of them's a planeswalker, and the other one's Chainsaw, and all of the others are commons or uncommons.
Yeah. And like one of the interesting things here too is that while I think Chainsaw is, I think it is the best in a lot of ways of the removal spells. It's not just the best removal spell. It's good because it gives you, lingering value that eventually becomes really powerful. But as an actual removal spell, it's pretty underpowered compared to the uncommon removal or common and uncommon removal that we're running. It's an effect that is worse than some of the 1-mana effects.
Yeah, and that's a deliberate choice by them. I can't. I think it was. I've read something that a designer wrote, and it basically called out like it would be pretty shitty of us to make the good removal, the good enough removal in most formats like be rares every time, because like if decks are going to need any kind of card, for the most part, they're going to need some interaction, and like putting all the interaction at rare to create artificial scarcity and like drive up the aftermarket price would just be like a shitty thing to do. So basically, at any point in time, any set, there's going to be a Doomblade. And don't get me wrong, they have done it. I sold a Vraska's Contempt once for $15, which is hilarious now.
Dude, Hero's Downfall was like $10 the first time it was in Standard.
Yeah, I mean, there's that example too. Yeah, there's that example too.
It used to be that the killing a Planeswalker was a novel thing on a removal spell. Yeah. So like they kind of, but now it's not. Like it's just not novel to do that. So yeah, I agree. Unless if you're going to print a removal spell at rare, it needs to do something a little more interesting than just 1-for-1, which I think Quag Feast is actually a pretty good example because that mills you a little bit and has like synergy with graveyard decks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a cool card.
Neat. Even if the end game is just like, this is 2-mana sorcery, kill a creature. like,
yeah.
So I don't know that there's anything super actionable here because like even people who are filtering new sets by rare and mythic still kind of know what the good removal spells that came out in the set are, and nobody's missing the like new lightning bolt, lightning strike variant in a set. So like I don't know that there's anything actionable to kind of point people towards by just saying like, oh, a lot of the removal that you're going to play is common and uncommon. It's just like that's just the case.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the actionable stuff here would be, we talked about Unable to Scream. I think that was a really easy one to miss for people. And then I would also like to talk about Case of the Gateway Express is the kind of card that we didn't really consider as playable. And it turns out like I've heard that this might be the best removal spell in white at the moment, or like one of the best removal spells in white, just because of how it synergizes with other things your deck is doing instead of having a downside. But I think that's a card. The Case of the Gateway Express is the 1 in a white. When it enters, you choose a creature you don't control, and each creature you control deals a damage to that creature. And then when you attack with 3 or more creatures, it solves it to give creatures +1/+0 on future turns. And this card's just a really, really powerful interactive piece, mostly because a lot of the white decks are go white decks. So this gives you a removal spell that then also acts as an anthem. And I think this is a kind of easy card to miss because it doesn't read as just like that classic premium removal spell. Like I think it's pretty easy to see a card like Flame Slash or to see a card like Scorching Shot and be like, oh yeah, this is like clearly good. But I think a card like Case is a little more contextual, and it's something you should be looking for. Cards that have like, maybe you pay a tiny premium to get a really big upside. This is kind of like the white version of Chainsaw in a lot of ways, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about the kind of like niche, not like standout removal. It's easy to see the lightning bolt variant in every set and be like, okay, how does this stack up against the lightning bolts I already play? It's less obvious when you're looking at Case of the Gateway Express that doesn't have an immediate analog. And it's like, okay, well, how does that one play out? It's like, I don't know. You're probably going to miss it and come back around to it. But hey, that's, again, the glory of Cube. You get to make changes down the line, too. So I pulled out 2 cards here as kind of like a rarity comparison. I just want to get your guys' thought. Just kind of to hammer home to the listener that, like, uncommons are friggin' juice these days. So Monstrous Rage, we talk about this card a lot on the podcast. That's the red mana instant that gives a creature +2/+0 and puts the monster roll on it. That gives it another +1/+1 in trample. And then you compare that side by side with Embercleave. Remember the standard defining red finisher. I don't really need to read Embercleave. Everybody knows it. Believe in the cleave. Which of these cards is better? Serious question. Which of these 2 cards is better?
And it's not particularly close.
Oh, not particularly close.
There it goes.
Don't be wrong. Embercleave has a higher...
Not particularly close.
Embercleave has a way higher ceiling, but when you're when you're actually, all in going low aggro, like, yeah, of course Monstrous Rage is better. It's 1 mana. It's a little mana.
I agree. I don't know if I would say it's not particularly close because Embercleave
throwing the particularly in there makes it even snottier.
The particular.
I think Cleave is better if you're in like a Gruul or you're playing like Boros where you've got access to like things that actually make your creatures bigger. I think it's a lot closer. But if you're talking about just like in color, we're playing a base like a mostly red aggressive deck. I don't think it's all that close because your creatures are like 2/2s and 3/3s, and Monstrous Rage is just basically giving them double strike anyways for 1 mana functionally. The prowess means that you're going to survive the combat you're in. Like, it lets you play multiple spells in your turn. I think Embercleave in a lot of your red decks is going to cost like 3 or 4 mana sometimes. I don't like you need to be having some sort of token generation or like stat buffs, I think, for Cleave to really get there.
Sure.
It's still, both of them are great cards though. Like, this is more again me saying Monstrous Rage is really, really broken rather than Embercleave is bad.
I do agree. I do agree that it is a better card in kind of in a vacuum.
Which is wild. I mean, they are different cards, but I mean, it turns out just costing 1 mana is always a huge bonus. This card also gets points from me for being a combat trick that's good enough for Cube in the year of our Lord 2025. Teld and I are both big fans of when combat tricks and protection spells are good enough because the heuristic for such a long time was that they're inherently trash. And if you're not like fortunate enough to be able to play your Cube all the time, you might, there are heuristics that I hear repeated in Cube discussions that are being repeated by people who actually get to maybe play their Cube like 4 or 5 times a year. And if you're only getting that many reps and you're not playing a lot of like limited, you could easily like miss a trick, like, or think they're also on the other end of that. There's like thinking that some category of card or some effect is like still premium when it's not, or whatever. Things shift, but yeah, we're both big fans of when uncommon quote unquote limited cards kick ass in rare Cube environments.
I agree. I mean, I will say Monstrous Rage is clearly a design mistake. It's now banned in like multiple formats. It's arguably bannable in another format. Just a reminder, we run 2 of these in the Neo Cube for some reason. we might want to go in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who's going to win? The legendary Sword of Myth Excalibur or an silly bear
angry
with
bear?
Angry arms? Like,
I love Monstrous Rage's art.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love this card. Like, it's fun. I think it's fun to play with. Oh, fuck you guys. Whatever.
I think it's fun to play fun to play against because like do they have the Monstrous Rage? Like, in a lot of ways it does make blocking illegal, which is kind of annoying. But like the do I take like the worst block in case they have Monstrous Rage is definitely something you have to ask yourself.
Well, they always have it. They always have it.
It is the Tyvar Sand of red. Just anyway, here's Monstrous
I love
Rage.
how it just makes your Monastery Swift Spear just like a 4/3 with trample for 1
turns
mana.
It into Flage the Untouchable.
Yeah, and then it.
Wait, isn't it a 4/4 Chris? Because it gets a prowess trigger and then
yep,
and then it plus 1 from the monstrous roll.
Yeah, it makes your dude
5?
huge.
6?
Yeah, 5. Yeah, no, it makes it enormous.
5?
I'm not thinking straight. It makes it enormous, and then it and then like your prowess dude is now perma larger and has trample.
Now, the real trick with this is just to pay red, red, red and Monstrous Rage plus Cleave. And now you've given, plus 3 and plus 4 and Double Strike. Now you're really cooking.
Plus 20, plus 20 and double. That's like quadruple strike, dude.
Dude, we should start doing, we should start publishing like monthly challenges. And like we'll give you something.
No. You know why? Is because people will just like either. I've always like pondered like, oh, we could do achievements for Jank Evercube. Wouldn't that be fun? But like when you really think about it, like you're gonna have a couple people who will just tank drafts or like ruin draft environments to like try and force this really gimmicky thing. Or you'll have collusion go on, which would be an annoying way to go about it, where they're just like, hey, let me do this thing so I can get the screenshot of this thing I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And I just don't think, no, you're right. I think it's gonna lead to unforeseen unpleasantries, if I may.
Well, it sounds like you're foreseeing them, and given again that you are literally never wrong when you make a prediction,
they don't call me the Nostradamus of Magic.
He's definitely tucking away those achievements for 2 generic mana.
You think Kevin's chili? Never mind. Stock up. So we talked about stock up already. That's 2 and a blue sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand. Basically, double Demonic Tutor for 3 mana. The side-by-side comparison that came up, Dig Through Time, classic 6 blue instant with Delve. Look at the top 7, put 2 into your hand, rest on the bottom. Which of these cards is better? I'm pretty sure it's stock up. Like there are times, this is one of those ones where like just like Cleave, Dig Through Time is better in some situations. I think in most situations, I think stock up is just a better, more reliable card than Dig. Like just to compare an uncommon to a classic rare that a lot of decks cubes still play.
That being said, we also got an almost direct upgrade to Dig Through Time in the last set with Consult the Star Charts, which I think is much closer in terms of power level to stock up. The stock up might still be better.
And stock up is just like it's just a pushed uncommon, which is kind of the moral of the story here. It's just they wanted. I mean, I don't even know if accessibility is the right thing because it's like $7 to $10 a pop or something like that in paper.
Is it seriously? Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, I don't know if that price has come down, but the whole point here being like, if you were to ignore the rarity, you would probably be sitting on cards like Dig Through Time and Embercleave that we believe have better versions at lower rarities. So there's some other examples. I was thinking of throwing Tyvar Stand on here to compare to Heroic Intervention, but I was like, does anybody actually even play Heroic Intervention? Just to kind of drive home the point of like, here's this uncommon that's doing a better thing than this rare that gets reprinted all the time. So that kind of leaves us with some examples we could talk about. I threw a few on here. Again, I'm throwing a lot of card images on the document here for the listener because I know there are a couple listeners who have been following along with the documents lately, so that this is for you. But I mean, this is just a forum to kind of like talk about any of the standout commons and uncommons that you guys like and want to discuss more in depth or want to try to convince people to take a second look at. We've already talked about Deep Cavern Bat, but there's certainly others worth keying in on.
I think my personal favorite on this list that you've assembled, Tim, although I actually really like all of these cards, but Repulsive Mutation is just so sick. This is a weird one, too, because it's not like, oh, it's just like a good uncommon that's just good enough. It's like a wildly unique effect as well, so it's kind of like in a category of its own, but you guys have heard us drool over this card before. X green blue instant, put X +1/+1 creature, counters on target creature you control, and then counter up to 1 target spell unless this controller pays mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Really sick, like Fireball, Combat Trick, counter spell kind of combination. I'd like to see more Simic cards like this. And then like Rutstein. Honest Rutstein is a card that just always kind of makes me feel smart for having in the list, for lack of a better way to put it. It's a 1 black and a green for 3/2. When it ETBs, it Gravediggers, and then it discounts, while it's on the battlefield, all creature spells that you cast cost 1 less, which can be very strong. Sheltered by Ghost is cool too, but you guys have played more with that card, so I'd like to hear one of you talk about it.
It's just a good tempo card.
Yeah,
it's just a rock solid removal spell that's playing on a slightly different axis. It's also easy to miss because auras are especially easy to miss because there's still that true mentality. It's still true that auras like are inherently risky, permanent type. But like I think too many people have like kind of internalized that to the point where it's like auras are unplayable, and that's not true. Like Shelter by Ghost is just a great example of an aura that's highly playable, highly good, and like the ward 2 on it. Shelter by Ghost is the 1 in a white enchanted creature you control gets +1/+0 and has lifelink and ward, and then it banishes and lights something until it leaves the battlefield, or until until the Shelter by Ghost leave the battlefield, which usually means when the creature left the battlefield.
This is another good to play retail moment, because I think even in retail draft, I was kind of sketchy about this card at first. It was one of those, is this going to be worth it? Like, is this, this is kind of auras are traditionally a trap. And like, if you've played Duskborn, this is like outside of the really, really broken rares, this is the best card in the set.
It is. It's the best uncommon for sure, and I'm pretty sure I was low on it. I think it was Lords of Limited. One of those guys had it in like their top 10 in their like early previews, and the other guy was like, I don't know about that. Doesn't this card suck? And I was kind of that mentality, and you play with it like once. Like you do one draft where you have a Shelter by Ghost and it clicks. Like sample size be damned. Like it just clicks for a card like this. And I think a really egregious example, Malevolent Rumble, a common, granted a Modern Horizons 3 common, which is
best card in Vintage Cube, apparently.
Equivalent. LSV said this is the best green card in Vintage Cube right now. Like the best green card in Vintage Cube.
Wait, are you talking about Malevolent Rumble?
Yes, Malevolent Rumble, according to Luis Scott Vargas, who plays way more Vintage Cube than I do, is the best green card that you could, presumably not like the strongest output, but like the best card for the most decks, like fits in the most places, and you should highly consider it over, other green cards. I'm assuming if there's like Natural Order in your pack, you're still taking Natural Order or whatever, but he seemed to make it sound like that's not necessarily the case. You should be considering Malevolent Rumble over other more traditionally powerful green options.
That makes me happy because I really like this card.
Yeah, we've been on this card for a while. We've gushed over this one a lot as well.
We didn't miss this one. This was not a miss by us. I think all three of us were on it when MH3 came out, and it's very easy to see why it's like not a mystery. It is sort of a mystery that it would be the best green card in Vintage Cube.
Yeah, I would not have had that on my bingo card.
But it was not a mystery why like a 2-mana cantrip that fills your graveyard and spots you a mana and a body is like a rock solid card. Could have easily been an uncommon. We talked about this very recently in the last Peasant episode as well, and how it kind of like fields out similar cards from new sets at the Peasant level because it's so pushed. But yeah, we don't need to read all the cards here. I guess we just did read most of the cards. Marionette Apprentice is the best blood artist like ever printed at uncommon, blah blah blah. You could say again, MH3 kind of fielding out everything that came before it, but whatever. There are tons of commons and uncommons we can talk about. We don't need to discuss every mana dork. We don't need to discuss every removal spell. Those are just some of the kind of like standouts that to give people an idea of like, hey, maybe you should go look back at Scryfall, look back at some of the sets. I would say especially from the play booster era forward, which is Murders at Karlov Mana forward, is when they've really started to intentionally juice commons and uncommons, like purposefully, and that has produced some very powerful cards that play well in tandem with higher rarity cards. Again, the rares and mythics tend to be really splashy. They tend to compete with the other rares and mythics doing the same things, but you can get your bread and butter type effects. Like you can bolster your bread and butter type effects, like your removal, your cantripping creatures or whatever, with some of these lower rarity cards. That's my Tuesday. Oh, I guess I had some random notes here at the bottom. The only other one that hasn't been mentioned is that I don't think this applies to Mana Fixin'. Outside of some MDFCs, every single land we play in our cube is a rare. I don't think there's any lower rarity lands that are really competing with the higher rarity lands. That's just not how they design lands right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could be wrong here. I may be accusing them of something they haven't said, but I believe they've explicitly or at least implied that they do this because it sells packs, right? That they want to put rares. They make lands rares so that it will sell packs.
Yeah, don't want those stupid removal spells to be rare, but let's put the dual land cycle at rare every single time, which I get it. You got to sell the packs. It's whatever. So yeah, any final thoughts here on commons and uncommons? Any other like big takeaways aside from don't ignore the commons and uncommons that are coming out in these recent sets?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you made a cube that was entirely made of commons and uncommons, you could create some pretty cool and interesting gameplay environments. Perhaps if somebody were to host those, we could call it like an artisan cube or something. That could be cool. It's there's the artisan. Though that maybe that doesn't have quite a ring to it.
I'm gonna invent the Noble Cube, which is all mythic rares. It's
All
a 360 card, all mythic rare cube.
Nice.
I do think the Peasant Cube's in a really good spot from everybody who I've talked to and what I've gotten to play of it, which hasn't been a lot lately because of the time change on it. But it seems like it's in a good place, and like I like that we've been more open lately to trying out commons and uncommons. There was one that we didn't mention that I think is in a bit of a unique space in Flood Pit Drowner, which is like definitely a tempo kind of card. And so, I think these cards have been increasingly more relevant. And so I think it makes spoiler season more interesting because it's like when you see these obviously good, cheap cards in commons and uncommons, you have to have that conversation, or you see them overperform in the Peasant Cube. You have that conversation of like, can this card make the jump? And as we've tried some that haven't made the jump as well, we've kind of identified certain features that maybe make that, like, for example, we were on Sun Pearl Cure, which I think was a fine card in the mainline cube, but I think it did have a struggle of needing a lot more setup compared to something like Peasant, where everything just incidentally does the thing that it's doing, right? Whereas a lot of these cards have much easier, I guess, windows of getting them to do the thing.
Repulsive Mutation was a jump card, right? Because I think
it's better in the mainline cube than it is in the Peasant Cube.
That does not surprise me, but I think when we initially reviewed it, I said that I thought it was interesting, but probably not strong enough, just because I hadn't seen it. And I think you guys put it in the Peasant Cube and then got back to me and said, like, actually, no, this is
we were sold on this card from retail too, because it's like one of the most. It was like this is the card that if you played Murders and you were playing the like mid-rangey decks, if you ever managed to get ahead and you could get to a point where you could hold up a Repulsive Mutation, you just felt invincible.
Yeah, I don't know if we started this in the Peasant Cube after the reviews or not, or when it first came out, but I know we definitely went from like retail to Peasant to mainline. Like that was kind of the trajectory of the card, is like, oh, this is really good in retail, let's try it in Peasant. Oh, this is really good in Peasant, feels like it fits the mainline cube, let's try it there. Oh, it's really good in mainline cube. Like, okay, we got a staple on our hands. Like that was kind of the adventure we had with that. I don't know what the word is. Whatever. Anyway.
I just wanted to toss one more just quick note on there. Like I mentioned a lot of different categories of cards and, provided a lot of examples, but what really, when you're going through a card file and if you're going to in the future, like scrutinize the commons and uncommons a little harder, maybe as a result of like thinking about this stuff, just look for text boxes that scale with the power level of the stuff around them. That's basically what it boils down to, right? Whether it's a synergy piece or like a removal spell is as powerful as the thing that it's removing, right? Things that have a direct plug-in to like what they're interacting with, like they scale with the environment around them. Those are going to be the kind of cards that work. What were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say also like being like things that are agnostic to that too, like like your removal spell doesn't care what it kills, right? It's kind of like I'm kind of agreeing with you. It's like your removal spell doesn't care what it kills, but the better the thing that it's killing, the better it gets, right?
Right.
And that's particularly true when you're talking about cards that have these big, powerful effects, but also are efficient. Like one of the ways Repulsive Mutation is powerful is that it's a 2-mana counter spell that also acts as a very powerful scaling finisher type of card. And so, yeah, I mean, these cheap cards that generate value, they do that. Like, I do agree, though, the engine-y type cards, your Mischievous Mystics and your Clarion Spirits and your Blood Artists and stuff, they can definitely get some extra oomph from being in more powerful environments where there's more consistent access to, for example, Mischievous Mystic is, I think, better in the mainline cube than the Peasant Cube in a lot of ways because there's like 5 looters in our 2-drop section for blue. And when you've got easy access to a ton of looters, you don't have to chain together a bunch of card draw spells or make sure you always get the Shoreline looter. You've just got like, you can get 3 or 4 of them in your deck, and then you've just got a bunch of engines to pair with your Mystic.
So, yeah, check out those commons and uncommons, people. They're good. I wonder, I didn't quite get to this point. I was like, I wonder how many commons and uncommons we're playing, but I didn't feel like doing a count. I'm sure there's some sort of like Cube Cobra filter you can do there, but I didn't. I messed up the last Cube Cobra filter, so I didn't want to do it this time either.
You're feeling gun shy?
Yeah. Remember, to the listener, you can find us on youtube.com/jankedrivergaming and twitch.tv/TeldTalks. Ignore, if you see Twitter on here, ignore it. It doesn't exist. 98 out of 360. So what's that? A little over a sixth of the queue. Like
it's more than a quarter.
Do quick math. Yeah. That's a significant
apparently
amount.
This has 100 out of 360. So maybe I'm bad at math. Whatever.
Okay, well, it's in that range. It's around the 100 range, so about a third of the cube, give or take, which is not surprising to me. Like I said, this whole point of this episode is how good commons and uncommons are these days. Like, it's not surprising at all. That is going to go ahead and do it for this on. We will be back with Avatar: The Last Airbender, I guess, review. I don't even know if you want to call it a review, because like we really haven't seen that much from the set that is even going to be remotely playable for our purposes. So maybe it'll be a short one. Maybe we'll get a hour-long review in finally, but that'll definitely be the next round of episodes, the Peasant Avatar review and the mainline Avatar review. And we'll get to look at some really, really bad art on cards, but that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for hanging out, folks, and we will catch you all next time. Can I rant? Can I rant for 2 seconds?
I was gonna say, I thought you had something to complain about. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was gonna present this as like the single card discussion, but it didn't feel appropriate. So I just want to rant about this card, Gut True Soul Zealot, which is in the current iteration of the Jank, or not the Jank Diver Gaming Cube, the Arena powered cube. It's a vintage cube, like all-star at this point. And it's been winning me a lot of games, but I think this is such an atrocious design for a Magic card. It's so overpowered, and I just wanna take like 5 seconds to like kind of hate on the card for a minute. But for people who don't know, Gut True Soul Zealot is 2 and a red for a 2/2 legendary Goblin Shaman. It's an uncommon. This motherfucker's an uncommon for some reason. Motherfucker's an uncommon. When you attack, you may sacrifice another creature or an artifact. If you do, you make a 4/1 black skeleton creature with menace that's tapped and attacking. And it also has choose a background, which is really funny because you can't use that text on Arena, but it's on Arena. There's like 10 billion things I want to rant about. First off, choose a background looks dumb on a client that doesn't have any backgrounds. Second off, they had to use the weird AFR D&D art for this because they already used the real art on a stupid specialized version of this card that has nothing in common with the actual card. So you have to play with the alternate dumb art in the cube because they already squandered the original art on a card that nobody plays, to the point where I'm like, they should just swap those, right? Like, just swap those and put the real art on the card that people recognize. Second off, why is this an uncommon? For if you have this in your peasant cube, you're deranged and you need to get this shit out of your peasant cube. Like, that is just unreasonable. Third off, why is every knob on the card turned up to exactly what you would want it to be? It's got the Nadu thing, right? Where it's like, oh, well, maybe they pulled back a restriction here, and it's like, no, it's just everything you want. The land comes in untapped. It's whenever you're targeted anything, your opponent or you. Gut is the same thing. It's whenever you attack. Gut doesn't even have to be the thing attacking. It's sacrifice a creature or artifact. Why would your artifact be turning into a 4/1 skeleton? The skeleton comes in tapped and attacking for some reason.
And it has menace.
And it has menace. This thing. So Fuller said this the other day. He was looking at a pack in Vintage Cube or Arena Powered Cube. It was like pick 3, and it had a Mox and it had Gut. And, you know, Carbon was watching, a couple other people were watching. They're like, oh, you got past a Mox. You got to take the Mox. And Fuller was like, I think Gut's better. and of course, people do the Vintage Cube thing. They're like, no, it's a Mox. You can't pass a Mox. You have to take the Mox. And Fuller's like, no, I honestly think Gut is better than the Mox in at least the deck that I'm drafting right now. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. I think you will win more games with Gut in your deck than Moxen in your deck. But, you can't have that conversation because people are like, oh, you can't pass Moxen or whatever. I think this is such an egregious design. And part of it is because one of my least favorite things about Vintage Cube in general is how it incorporates made-for-Commander cards. Mm-hmm. And that's not a knock against Commander. I think made-for-Commander cards are fine. I just don't think they should be incorporated into 1v1 20-life formats, because the reason Gut is a 2/2 that makes repeatable 4/1 menace attackers is because it was designed for a format where you have to chug through 120 life points to win. You translate that over with cards like Minsk and Boo and all the other Bombardiers and stuff like that to 20 life formats, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It's why Initiative and Monarch are broken. It was not designed for that, and you're just breaking those formats by allowing those cards in, and I just don't like that. I've never liked that. Obviously, if you just made that a blanket rule, you would be losing out on some pretty fun cards like Staff of the Storyteller, Currency Converter, like Baleful Strix maybe was like, I think that was a plane chase thing, actually, but like you would be missing out on some things. But I can't stand how like these cards that are tuned for Commander are the dominant cards in Vintage Cube. It's like, that's not what they were designed for. That's not why the numbers are so big on these cards. And Gut is, to me, like the pinnacle of this, because you can just like turn 1 it sometimes or turn 2 it. I had someone play Get Lost against me yesterday. Like they killed my 2-drop with Get Lost. You know what Get Lost does? It gives you 2 map tokens. You know what map tokens are good with? Gut, True Soul, Zealot, because they just become fucking 4/1 attackers.
Best map tokens of all time. Best map tokens of all fucking time.
So anyway, rant over. Gut is a truly insane card. If you invite me out to play your Peasant Cube and it has Gut, True Soul, Zealot in, I'm not gonna play your Peasant Cube. Like,
it's like
just get out.
That's even more. That's even more egregious than throwing like Reanimate in there. You know
what? Clamp Reanimate. Yeah.
I know this is just like a very small niche thing, but it's funny. It doesn't even say non-token creature or non-token artifact. So like, I can't imagine too many circumstances where you would do this. But let's say like the only thing that you have to attack with is your 4/1 Skelly. You can just sack the 4/1 Skelly to itself, and it has no material effect on your board presence. But like, you get an extra death trigger out of it if you have like a Blood Artist on board or something like that. Like.
Or your Elspeth Stormslayer?
Yeah. This literally is not gated in like any way. Oh, dude, it would be so funny to like have this in Anointed Procession. Not that you would ever do that, because Anointed Procession is not a good card. But it'd be so funny if you were just like sacking your Skellies to make double the Skellies.
Isn't this just an unserious Magic the Gathering card design though? Like,
yes,
I know it was for Commander, it was for Baldur's Gate or whatever, like a draftable Commander like format, but like. What an unreasonable thing to like make it. It should be. Never mind. Whatever.
I have no problem with the card existing. I have a problem with, like you said, importing these cards that were clearly designed because they need to deal 120 damage into 20 life formats.
Yeah, that's why Minsc and Boo makes a 4/4 and leaves a Planeswalker behind and draws so many cards and makes Boo bigger and replaces it every turn and has the line of text on it. It can be your commander because it was built for a commander form. It's actually from the same set as Gut, funny enough. But like, that has always bothered me, is that people are like, oh, well, we're going to play with all these cool cards from Commander, but we're also going to port over all the busted cards. You know what the best cards in Vintage Cube are these days? None of those classics that you associated with it. It's the Power 9. It's the Modern Horizon stuff, and then it's the Commander stuff, and everything else from like actual standard sets is like sitting in the background, and I find that a little bit unpleasant for the purposes of Vintage Cube, because like, people who are longtime Vintage Cubers will probably tell you Vintage Cube was much more fun 10 years ago when you were slamming Consecrated Sphinxes and Frost Giants than it is now, where everything is over on turn 3, which I know that's the diminishing way to look at Vintage Cube, but that is really
we appear to be in the minority, because since Power Cube got on Arena, we have not been able to fire a draft.
Yeah, people would rather spend their 10,000 coins to pay for a draft than to just come draft for free instead, which I guess chasing that high of open and power, like people just want to open power, I guess. I don't care about power one way or another. So anyway, Gut, True Soul, Zealot rant out, and I'll leave it at that. Hey, Teld, which do you like better, Cheesecake or Monstrous Rage?
Monstrous Rage, and it's not particularly close.
Okay, and how about Kobe Bryant?
Monstrous Rage, and it's not particularly close.
What about Monstrous Rage versus the last season of Game of Thrones?
Monstrous Rage, and it's not particularly close.
And what if you had to compare it to your mother and father, your own flesh and blood?
Monstrous Rage, and it's not particularly close.
Well, you heard it here, folks.